Welcome back to the workbench where you can watch unedited and uncut me try to make something. And what we're trying to make today, or in the next couple episodes, I guess, the next few days, is a dinosaur diorama for my daughter's playroom. So this is a dinosaur. Oh, and I think I'm going to throw up in the corner, I think it's that corner, one of the corners, where we make it to what the final result of today, so you can kind of see where we're going and now hang out and you can see how we get there. And like I said, what I'm doing is a dinosaur diorama for my daughter's playroom, which her playroom is all dinosaur stuff, so this will fit perfectly. This is one of those Discovery box things you buy where it's a big block of kind of dirt clay stuff, and you use the little tools and you chisel it out, and you end up getting all the dinosaur bones that you can then articulate a dinosaur. Well, we've done that, and now what I thought I'd do is take it to the next step, and we're going to actually paint this and weather it up like bones, like dinosaur bones, and then I've got a piece of MDF and I've got some diorama type stuff. So like I've got some rock. This is forms to make rocks. I figure we'll build up this back corner, kind of build up rocks back there. And then my idea is, so he's got one leg that's bent, as you can see, and one leg that's straight. The idea is actually the bent leg goes back and, he's walking like that. But what I think I'm going to do is bring the bent leg forward. We'll have a rock. Obviously, it'll be a formed rock, formed and painted rock. And he's going to be like standing on the rock and then have his head roaring. And then that'll be kind of our diorama. We'll have grass and rocks kind of protruding up like he's got his foot up on a rock and roaring. Anyways, but what we need to do first is get him kind of put together. And I think the first step for doing that, let me move all this stuff out of my way. I'll set this back here. I think the first step for doing that is we're actually probably going to, for the most part, de-articulate him, because I need, as you can see, there's a lot of, in fact, let me show it in the face cam, you probably can see better. There's a lot of just plastic pieces and stuff that all needs to be cleaned up. So I think that's what we're going to do here real quick, is I'm going to try to just clean up a lot of this kind of extra flashing from the molding process. Obviously, this is meant to be a fun, almost like a game, I would say, where you dig the stuff out of that stone. Well, it's not even stone; it's kind of like clay, I guess. They actually are kind of fun, especially if you're into this kind of thing. If you're a nerd like me, and you're forcing your daughter or son or someone to also be a nerd, they're kind of fun. They give you the little tools. They give you a little hammer, a little chisel, and you just start banging away. What you do is you wet it, which softens up the clay, and then you just start chiseling away, banging away at it until you find all the bones, and then you put them together. They have a picture you kind of follow as far as putting the bones together, but I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You're not fully articulating a T-Rex or whatever this is, Allosaurus or whatever this is. I think it's probably supposed to be a T-Rex. But anyways, let me get these cleaned up. I think this is like I said, our first step. And, I know what I was going to say is you don't have to, I don't think I'm going to go too overboard with this, because obviously it's ancient bones. So it's not like they'd be perfectly smooth. They'd have some imperfections, and we kind of want some imperfection, because that's when we start doing like our washes and whatnot. That's what's going to, it'll bring out that detail in it. What I don't want is mold lines. Like, I don't want these perfect mold lines that are in the bones. Like this is so we had to put these two halves together, and I'm debating whether I should go ahead and maybe glue these together. I think I probably will. What I'm going to do, we'll try to get these, because as you can see here, well, you probably can't. Let me show you a little better. There's the two halves of the head went together like so, which encapsulated the jaw that opens and closes. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and glue that together. Let me reach back here. Excuse me, just a second. I'm going to reach right back here, grab my cement, my plastic cement here, and I think we're actually going to glue this guy together. Just going to run it right down that seam. And this extra thin cement will actually flow right into that seam and it'll bond this together well. This backside doesn't really like to come together, which I think is okay because I still got to get the head ball, the neck ball back in there. So I think we'll just kind of glue that seam, and I think that's going to be fine for the skull. Now it's just a matter, again, of kind of cleaning this up. And I just use my X-Acto knife. You can see like something that's really hanging off or protruding. I'll go ahead and just cut it loose. And then just use the edge of my X-Acto as kind of a plane, I guess you could say. Just use the edge of it to really kind of scrape it down smooth. It's a quick way to get rid of mold lines and that kind of stuff. Works for me, at least. If you have your technique, definitely let me know what your techniques are down in the comments for doing these kind of things. I am always looking to learn. I am by no means an expert. I'm just a guy trying to make things. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And really, at the end of the day, I'm not just trying to make things. I'm a guy who enjoys doing this stuff. Even though I'm not necessarily the best at it, that's not the point. The point is to enjoy what you're doing. And I enjoy trying to do these things. And then at the end, having something, that I made, kind of, whether even if it's just gluing pieces together, it's still a project that I went through and made. Let me get some of this inside of this cleaned out. Yeah. I'm wondering, trying to decide if I want to try to fill these lines. If I want to try to fill this seam. I guess I should stay center frame too. I have to keep that in mind. If I should fill this seam with some filler. If I should go that far with it. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I think we're just going to try to smooth this out. I don't want this project to go on. I only want this to maybe be 2, maybe 3 days long or episodes long or however we want to call that. I think that looks pretty good there. Now let me see. It was mainly the skull that had most of the issues. There's a little bit here that needs cleaned up right here at the neck. Yeah. I mean, I can probably clean up some of this stuff on the spine. Let me I was just giving it a once over. Giving it kind of a look over. I probably should go through and glue this off first, which I think I'm going to do because I might end up kind of cleaning up some of the glue too as I go. I'm just going to try to glue right down because these two halves went together also. You can see where they pinch together here. So I'm just going to drop some glue right down the seams and back here also. This is a separate piece back here, the kind of the hip section. And then those two glue together right here. So I'm gonna get some glue in there. And again, just let this stuff's ultra thin. I'm just gonna let it run down into those seams. And it looks like, so this is where the two tail pieces came together here. They kind of peg together right there. So I'm just going to glue those pegs together here like so. It was a while ago we did this. I'm trying to remember how it all actually went together. I've had this sitting around for a while. I told her I was going to do this for her. And of course, like any great dad, it took me 6 months to do it. Let's see. I need to glue right back here to get these held together. I just want to make sure this doesn't come apart on us, essentially. And then let's glue the hip bones, the actual pelvis bones come together. They squeeze together right back here. So I'll run glue right. I'm going to make sure and hit that seam right there. I think that'll be fine. In fact, I'm going to squeeze them together a little bit. That's about as good as it's going to get. Okay. And I think I'm going to leave... I kind of want to get it posed into place because I'm going to paint this all together. Okay, I need to glue this breastplate in. I think it needs to go about right there. So let me drop some glue in here. I want to get it all glued into place or into pose because I'm going to paint it all together. I'm not going to take it apart and paint each piece. So I don't want, once I paint it, I don't want it to move. because then you'll have like behind the pieces will start showing. So I want to get this all glued into place how I want it. The arms, kind of put them outways like that. I think that looks okay. Let's go ahead and get some glue on those. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. I guess I need to go ahead. I'm gonna wait to put the head on because I want to clean up some of this stuff in here. But what I do need to figure out is his legs. And I need to figure out how they're going to be posed because, again, I want to glue them in place. Yeah, see, I needed to clean up this stuff down here. So let me see. Let me grab my molds. And I think I'm going to have him standing on either, let's see, can you guys see this? Either this rock. Obviously, you pour your mold from this side, your plaster in here. But I'm going to use this side to kind of posing. But there's also this kind of more interesting rock. It has like I don't know, 2 rocks in one or something. I'm wondering if I want to have him standing on that one. How do I want to have him standing? Kind of standing like that. I mean, that kind of makes sense. Or I could have him standing on this one. You know, that foot kind of propped up there. I think it works better on this slope here. If we look at his foot, how it's shaped, so when he's standing, and then it kind of fits that rock, I think. But I want to make sure it needs to be where it needs to be. Can I pull it down just a little bit? I think it's right there going to be. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be where we want them, right there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and glue those to kind of lock them in with some glue. Make sure I don't move them. So we'll go ahead and lock this in as that's the pose we're using. So I'm going to get some glue in there. Like so. And then let me get this one. This is the one that's probably more important to get locked in, is this one that we have going to be propping up. Let me make sure and get it kind of glued in nicely. Like so. Okay, I think that's. Did I glue the arms? I can't even remember. Let me re-glue them if I didn't. I think I did, but I don't remember. I'm pretty positive I did. And I got the ribs. Okay, I think that's going to be good. I'm going to just kind of lay them down like so. We'll throw the glue to the side. So I think that's going to have him locked in. Now, I'm going to let this dry up because I need to go through and kind of, again, clean up a lot of this. I still need to put his head in. I just don't want his head in the way of me trying to clean up the rib bones, which I think I can kind of do right now. So let me see. We'll do this together real quick because I think what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to actually cut. I know I said this is unedited and uncut, but I don't want you to sit here and watch me clean bones, for 45 minutes or whatever. So I think we'll try to do these real quick here together because you can kind of see the process. I'm just going in between them, trying to get those mold lines off. Again, I don't want to remove imperfections necessarily, just the mold lines. I want it to look natural. I don't want it to look like molded plastic. But what I think I'm going to do, we'll cut here. And then when we come back together, basically this is all I'm going to do so you don't miss anything. All I'm going to do is going to clean up these bones. And I think I'm going to run it out also to my spray booth, and I'm going to paint them. I have some kind of bone colored paint out there, so I'm just going to give it a full spray. It's plastic paint. I believe it's Rust-Oleum. I'm trying to think of their name. I'll bring it back. I'll bring the can back with me when I'm done painting, and we can see what I was using. Or so you can see what we're using. But let me get this done, and then we'll come back together with a block painted skeleton. And I'm back, and we've got a skeleton now that is pretty well smoothed out. I think I did a pretty good job smoothing out all the rough edges. And it is painted, in fact, it's painted this color right here. I brought the can back in with me. It's a satin ivory, and this is the Krylon Color Masters Cover Max, whatever. It's paint and primer all in one. For basically all kinds of surfaces, including plastic. So I thought this would work pretty well. And I had it on hand. And it seems, I think to be a pretty good bone color. Now, with that said, we could literally just leave it like this, go ahead and build our diorama if we wanted, but I think we'll take it a little bit one more step further, or maybe a couple steps further. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some brown wash. I've got some brown wash here. We'll kind of darken in all the recesses with the wash. And then I've also got some bone white, which I think is a whiter color. I might end up using, I've also got this color called dead white. I might end up using dead white. It might be too. I want to bring out some highlights too, is what I'm getting at. So we'll try those colors. But first things first, let's go ahead and see if we can get, let's get some brown wash on this. So I'm going to do this very simply. In fact, we'll just do the skull, I think, here. I'm not going to go too overboard with it. I think we'll just take our wash, and I'm just going to wash the bone with it like so. You can see it's quite the covering, and I've got paper towel, and I'm going to lightly come back and hit the high spots with my rag, my paper towel. And so it should just leave a bit of a stain colored bone, a little bit browner, as you can see. And then it brings leaving the wash in these deeper recesses, I should say. You can always come back and do it as many times as you want. Let me kind of dab that away. And you just do this until you're pretty satisfied with what you got. And if you've ever actually looked at skeleton bones, they are actually, fossilized skeleton bones, so I should say dinosaur bones, which are all fossilized. Obviously, they are darker than say, just like animal bones or whatever that you find, in your backyard or wherever, non-fossilized bones is what I'm trying to say. The fossilized bones are darker. And in fact, some of them are very, very, can be very brown. They look like, they start looking like wood, right? Because it's kind of, they're, as they fossilize, I don't know. I don't know all the exactly what's going on with them, but they definitely get darker. So they're no longer like a bone color, like a fresh, like if you were to, pull the bone out of a chicken leg or something that you're eating. It's a darker color from the fossilization. Anyways, let me just keep at this a little bit. And again, I always just say, just kind of getting down and dirty here. Not really trying to be too exact with anything. That's usually kind of the key. I do want to make sure and hit these deep recesses though, and try to keep those deep recesses a little bit darker. That's the whole idea, is to give it some depth. So if I lose some of that, I'll go back and add in. You can always come back. Oh, I guess I should keep this in frame for you guys. I'll just drop my paper towel. Hold on. You can always come back and add more. And then especially on the insides here, can you see what I'm doing? Yeah, I'm just going to really just kind of darken it up inside, because I just want this to be nice and shadowed. So I'm probably not even going to wipe this away. I'll just go dark with it on the inside of the mouth here, just like so. Yeah, and then I will hit the teeth, and then let me kind of knock off the tops of the teeth just to give, again, some depth to that. Yeah, and then the structure, some of this is, actual structure of the model. So in other words, like where the jaw hinges here. So I'm just going to darken all that up. Let me go ahead and get this top jaw too. I'll go ahead and darken it up while we're here. All on the inside, I want it to be nice and dark. Just like so. Again, just kind of smearing it around in there, I guess, is the best way to say my method of attack here. This stuff dries pretty quick too. So you can see here where it's kind of dark here on the jaw, right here, but that's okay. Again, it needs to be random, I guess. Let me get back in here like so, and I'm going to just kind of darken up this back side of this joint. Kind of like so, and then I think I'll knock the tops of these edges here just to give some definition. But yeah, I think that actually looks okay. Let me do the other side. Just kind of work on this side a little bit. Well, like so. And then you got to kind of work a little bit quickly because it does dry pretty quick. And this jar, this little brush in this jar does not reach. I might have to just grab my own brush to use. Once it gets a little lower in the jar, you can't. The brush doesn't reach the wash any longer. Yeah, I like how this is looking. And then, like I said, I think I'm gonna do the skull here as an example. And I broke my glue loose. That doesn't help anything. It's all right though. We can always re-glue it in the position we want. Let me kind of do that a little bit and then knock it off. Knock, like so. Yeah, looks good. I'm gonna darken these. Just give them a little. Let it just kind of run into those deep spots there. Let's hit the bottom jaw. And I think, yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I think what we'll do is we'll just do the skull together here real quick so we can see, yeah, you get the idea of how this is done. I'll do the rest of the skeleton, I think, in between episodes. Otherwise, this is going to get very, very repetitive. But you're starting to see kind of the idea. It's not only darkening up the bones, but it's giving some age and some depth to it. I mean, it looks to me, it looks so much better than just white, just all the same kind of tone. Let me hit this right back here. Like so. And go back and kind of take a look at what I want to touch up. Actually, I think I need to do, there we go. I need to do the bottom of this jawline here. Let's do the bottom of both of these jawlines, like so. Let's give it a quick little rub down. Yeah, this one here. Whenever you see these just completely white spots, I want to try to get some tone to them. That makes sense. Something like that. I'm kind of okay with where the skull is going here so far. Let me hit that just a little bit better. And of course, you end up, wiping away more wash than you wipe away more than stays on. So that's kind of the nature of washes is you kind of use a lot of it, I guess you could say. I don't know. What do we think? I think I'm kind of liking where we're at with that so far. There's like a dark, I don't mind dark, just kind of dark spots, but I don't want it to kind of stand out on its own like that one right there. And I'm getting a little picky, I guess, but I like that. That kind of recesses this hole here, or this, the hole we got going right there like that. Okay. Yeah. So I think I'm going to stop right there with the wash on the skull. Now, again, I will end up doing the entire skeleton. I'll do that in between episodes. It'll take way too long and just get really repetitive and boring. So I'll do that, kind of on my own. But what I do want to do now, and let me grab this piece of cardboard here and my paintbrush, and I'm going to put both of these colors out. I don't know if you can see I've got a really white and a little bit of a grayer white. The grayer one is actually called bone white. Yeah, I might come back in with, this might be a little too white, or I might even end up using both of them. I don't have a lot of this bone white left. I know you guys can't tell, but there's just a little bit in here. But I just want to kind of bring back some of the highlights. So let me put some down right here like so. Let's just see what we can do. I kind of want to bring, we kind of darkened it all up. In fact, I see some that I missed. Let me do that real quick because it's going to bug me on the inside here. Right back in here, I need to darken this section up right there. Let me make sure I got the other side. Well, yeah. Everything else looks okay. Okay. So like where I want to, maybe where I'll bring back some bright is on these high ridges here of his, I don't know, his eye sockets or it look like eyebrows. Obviously, that's not what they are, but, and I'm just going to very lightly kind of come in here, bring back in some color where there would be, kind of some high spots, like I said, the high ridges here. Like I'm going to hit here. Like so. I'm going to kind of bring it all the way along his nose here. Something like that. I like that. And then what I can also do to bring out all this kind of detail here, I'm going to come in and just kind of hit right in here, right through in here, all the high spots in here. Try to bring some of that definition back since we kind of washed it away. Can you see what's going on there? Like so. Yeah, I think that's okay. And then, yeah, I really want to get kind of in this area here. I want this to be, I've always noticed on fossil skulls that's kind of where this is usually the cleanest areas is right here, kind of on the, I don't know, on the snout or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Like so. Let's hit this. This is like where his, it almost looks like ear canals and stuff. And I don't know if that is where his ear would be, but like there's a lot of detail in there that I kind of want to bring back again, just by kind of just touching paint in there. You can see I'm not going crazy. I'm even letting the brush go a little bit dry while I do it. Let's go ahead and hit, I think right in here, like so. Same on this side, just to bring a little bit of this back. Yeah, that's not looking too bad. I kind of want to hit the top here. I like how this is making a shape here. So I'm going to bring this down and maybe just a little bit through here. It's kind of making a shape in there. I like that. Hopefully you guys can kind of see what's going on here. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to let that dry just a little bit. Let me clean my brush. We'll let that paint dry. And I'll tell you what, as that dries a little bit, I'm going to go back to doing some brown wash. Further back on the animal here, on the skeleton. Hit some spots of mist, like right there. And just start working my way down the spinal column and, I guess whatever, the rib cage and whatnot. And I have lost, oh great, what did I do? Oh, I set everything on it. So I've lost my paper towel, everything's sitting on it. Just like that. And go ahead and hit those high sides again. Just like that. And then once that bone white we just painted dries, I'll kind of show you the last step that we'll do together. And it's the last step of what I'm going to do on this. We'll take a, with the other kind of brighter white, the more true white color. I think I heard Alexa talking downstairs. I don't know what's going on down there. Again, I want to make sure and get more in the crevices, and I'm still having trouble reaching it. So I want to really get the brown, the darker brown in the crevices there. Yeah, I think it's going to look good. I think it's going to look look, for kind of a quick dirtying, a quick dirty kind of washes here. It's looking pretty good. And again, it's just a super simple technique. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it 100 times. But again, just kind of hitting right in those deep crevices, just coming back, relaying that, reapplying it, I should say. Let me make it all the way down to here if I can. And then we'll go back and see if we can do some of the brighter white I was talking about. Do that like so. And then let me go back in here and hit these, what I would want to be the dark spots. Just like that. Okay. So we'll let that sit. And then, of course, I'll go back and do the same thing. On the insides, I'm just going to go pretty dark, I think. Let me hit this while I'm here because, again, it's just starting to kind of bug me. Didn't mean to do that. That's okay. Give it a little extra character there. And then what I want to do now, I'm just going to go ahead and set that on our towel. Let me take this, what my color is called dead white. And we're going to go even to a brighter stage, I guess you could say. So we're just really going to just kind of dot the highlights. So let me just kind of get some on the brush, and then I kind of want to just, I think for the most part, just kind of dot it in here, like so. So I'm everything I'm doing is just almost like with a nervous hand, just kind of dot it around. Can you see kind of what I'm doing there? Hopefully that's coming through on camera. Again, I'm just making little dots, and what I wanted to actually hit, you can always pull it back with your finger. That's what I'll do a lot of times. If you get I got a little too much white on there, I wanted to dot the ends of these teeth just to kind of bring them out, to make them stand out just a little bit. That makes sense, because that's the scary part, right, is the teeth. Just like that. I think I'll hit this bottom jaw down here. But nothing is, I'm not doing any solid color. It's all just kind of, it's almost like I just make my hand nervous, if that makes sense, so that it just dots like a, almost like a what would you call it? A tattoo gun, or, a sewing machine. Just like so. And then that'll give that next layer of depth, or whatever you want to call it. Hopefully y'all can see kind of what I'm doing there. I mean, this is the way I do it. I think it gives a pretty good look. You can also go the other direction. I don't know if I will, but the other direction being, you can go in with some black wash, and then just in the certain spots. In fact, maybe we can do that. Just in those, let me kind of dot this stuff in here, and that way you can kind of see the full process that I would do. Just in those very specific places, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We're going to go in with some black wash, and that's basically taking it back the other direction. So sending it, making it even darker in some areas. And we'll do that here in just a second. Let me hit these teeth. Just like so. And I might come back and just hit them on the inside too, just to make them, show up. I want people to know, got some big teeth coming at you. Yeah, and a lot of times if you take the bright white, and obviously we're highlighting where we already came in with the bone white, but if you go and hit some of the darker areas, just dots in the darker area, that really, like, it's a little darker down here, and if I hit right there, that really brings out that spot now, because it's against, you got the contrast, and in fact, you can kind of mute it with your finger. I'll do a lot of times like that. And I kind of like where that's at. I don't want to go too overboard with it. I think that looks kind of liking how we're looking here. And then, like I said, let's just real quick before we go, I'll show you. I have my black wash. It's back on my rack back here. Let me see if I can grab it. Yeah, I just have this game wash here. I have to use something like this to put it in, because this doesn't have its own brush, obviously. And so I'm just going to dot some wash right there. I don't need much, because what I'm going to do is just in those deep areas, I'm just going to touch my brush in there just to get, in fact, I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit. And I'm just want to hit right and only in the deep areas here. Just like that, maybe right back here. So where it's getting really dark back here, just hit that and keep it. I think this would be dark in here. Just like so. And then if it's a little too much, again, just blob it just a little bit like so. Yeah. And there you can see, in fact, let me hit, well, I'm going to leave the nose alone. There you go. So let me just kind of do the same thing one more time on this side. So I just want to hit the deep stuff. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, I'm just kind of bopping it in there, just like so. Maybe hit right here, just give some detail down there. Here. I'm letting it go kind of dry on the brush so I can move it in there. And then there you go. And that kind of gives you that, that detail the other direction. Let me see if I can get some of this. It'll dry up lighter. Washes always dry lighter than they apply. It's a little darker than I wanted though. So let me kind of blot that out a little bit, but that's perfect. I think that's not too bad. And there. Pretty good. So now what I'll do is I'll apply the same technique to the entire skeleton. So when we come back tomorrow, this skeleton will be fully turned to bone. I don't know the right way to say it. Be completely, the wash will be complete. And then we can actually work on I'm just going back and add in, because I let that black a little bit hit my highlights. I want to bring them back. We can work on the diorama tomorrow. So we'll start making, I think what we'll do tomorrow is start building the stones, making the stonework. This side, really looks good. I like that side. Luckily, that's the side that's actually going to be showing, this side here. I like the way it came out better. Not that this side looks bad. Actually, it looks pretty good too. I just like how this side looks a little better. He's going to be standing this way, so that's perfect. Welcome back to the workbench, where uncut and unedited, you can watch me try to make things. And what we're making right now is a dinosaur diorama. Let me get him back in frame there so you can see him. We're building a dinosaur diorama for my daughter's playroom, which is like a dinosaur playroom. Anyways, we finished up, or at least I finished up in between episodes, doing the full wash and just bone effects with the paint to the dinosaur, to the full skeleton. So you can see what we turned out with. If you missed it, go back and watch last episode. You can see we did the skull together, and then I did the rest of the skeleton in between episodes. So go check that out. There is a playlist down in the description if you want to get caught up. But anyway, so we've got that done. So we need to set him aside for now. In fact, let me just set him right over here. Also, in between episodes, I built our tray, which this brown paint is still a little tacky, so I'm trying not to touch it too much. Let me pick it up this way. All this was our MDF board that I showed last episode also. And then I've got some 060 styrene plastic here that I boxed in. So, and then I just basically cut it higher in this corner. We'll kind of build up over here. That's kind of the traditional diorama kind of thing. We'll kind of just build up a little bit of structure over here. We'll have a rock that the dinosaur is standing on. And I wanted it to kind of look like, I painted it brown. I kind of wanted it to look like, a display in a museum, like what you'd have kind of sitting out on the floor of a museum with the T-Rex skeleton on it. So anyways, I'm going to set this aside because it is still a little sticky. It's relatively freshly painted. So I'm going to set it way over here so nothing touches it. Get out of the way. Because what we need to do now is actually do the rock. So the whole idea, let me bring him back over in case you missed last episode. I have this tray. Basically, it's rock molds that we can use plaster to make rocks, do the molds of rocks. And the idea is he's going to be standing. I've got one of his feet kind of forward and up. So he'll be standing on one of these rocks. Excuse me. And so I'll have a big rock, and we'll probably just go ahead and do all 3 rocks and then incorporate them in. But what we need to do is actually mold these. So let me set him aside. I've got our plaster here that we're going to be using, and basically you mix this 3 to 1. Okay, good. I did bring my little measuring spoons. I couldn't remember if I had them or not. But you mix this 3 to 1 with water. And so I have, where did I put it? Is this my water? I have a bucket of water here that I put together. This is actually RODI water I use for my fish tanks. I use it for all this kind of projects just so it doesn't have any impurities in it. And then the instructions for this stuff says you just kind of mix it up a little bit. You're supposed to kind of, I guess, shake it and basically get it very powdery. And then we will have another bucket. Let me move my molds out of the way. I have another bucket here that we'll actually mix it in. Let me go ahead and take the caps off of this. This is our water. This is our bucket. We'll mix this in. Hopefully it'll work okay. Basically the only things I could find. It's some old ghost greens. Yeah, we get old, our stomachs we need our greens. We need our probiotics. Don't judge me. Anyways, let me get this mixed up. And then, where's my scissors? Let me shake that all down to the bottom so I'm not getting dust everywhere. Get down to the bottom, please. There we go. Go on. Down you go. Because what I'm going to do is just kind of cut the top off of this, I guess, and then I can just clamp it closed when we're done. So let's cut, I guess I could I'll just cut the whole top off. Why not? The highest risk for maximum mess. That's what I say. Just cut the whole top of it off there. And then I think I'm going to mix, I don't know how much we really need. Maybe 3, since it's 3 to 1, maybe go 3. Yeah, that is where I want to put that. Okay, 3 tablespoons of the plaster stuff. I don't know if that's going to be enough, actually. Let's see what that looks like. I might double it up. How much is that in there? That's probably not enough to do all 3 of those rocks. So let me go 3 more. And then that'll just we'll mix it with 2 parts water. And then that still leaves us with plenty left over because we'll need some of the plaster once we put the rocks in. We kind of build our structure. We'll need some just raw plaster to kind of blend them in, if that makes sense. Blend the rocks in. So let me now grab a clip. I have some clips over here. Probably should be wearing a mask. I kind of smell this. Let me not breathe in too much of it, I guess. Give me just a second. I'm going to clip this up if I can, so we don't spill it everywhere, because we'll need that for later. I'm going to set you right back there. And then so now we need to mix in 2. This isn't the greatest of buckets, but it works. 2 things of water and just a touch, because those were a little underfilled. Close that up. I got a little popsicle stick, and let's see if we can mix this up. See how it turns out. Man, I really should have a mask on. I would advise wearing a mask while doing this. It makes kind of a little bit of powder in the air. This is pretty thick. I think we might need a little bit more water. That's pretty thick. We want it to be able to run a little bit. It's going to go just 1 more. Why not? Hopefully you guys can kind of see what's going on here. Get that. That's coming better, a little bit better mixture that I was wanting. Oh boy. Oh boy. My wife's going to kill me. I got on my shirt. Okay, let's make sure we're good and mixed. So 2 things I would advise, a mask and an apron, at least if you're like me. All right, I don't know exactly how much this is going to fill. I brought some paper towels. Here we go. I don't know exactly how much this is going to fill, but we'll see if we can get all 3 rocks. I'm going to try to clean this off my shirt real quick and pretend like it never happened. And then please nobody tell my wife. I ruin, I do this stuff every day and I ruin so many clothes, shorts, you name it. I've ruined it all. Okay, so what I think we'll do is just use this to help try to pour this in here. I definitely want this one. Yeah, this is not probably going to be nearly enough. I wonder if it's supposed to be even thinner than this. But this is going to be enough to get 1 rock. So, which is fine. We can mix up more. We have more. Let me do that right there. And then like so. Just kind of use my, if you've ever done cement or concrete slabs or anything, I'm going to use my popsicle stick as my float here. And I don't want it to overflow. That was actually the perfect amount just for this one here. I guess I didn't have to necessarily. Well, the one he's standing on definitely has to be filled to the top. I think that's gonna be fine. I'm probably overdoing this. But these, if I want to do these 2, they don't necessarily have to be filled. Well, this one probably would, or I can make 2 rocks if I fill it. Just a little shallow. It'll have a rock here, and then a shallow rock there. So let me do something like that. Let me set that over there. Let's mix up some more. I do need to leave some extra. I think when we do the blending, I think I'm going to go 1. Sorry, I'm talking in half sentences because I'm having to count in my head here. When we do the blending, I'll probably actually want to mix this out a lot thinner, so it'll float better. Move you to the side. Let's get to go a little extra. How much do I have over here? You know what? We can just do these. I'll use that one. I'm going to do and see what it feels. You know what I mean? We can always make more. I don't want to make too much and then not have enough left in the end. So let's go ahead and do this bit here. We'll mix it together. Hopefully what was in there previously doesn't cause problems. I think we should be okay. Just want to make sure I can get it completely mixed up. And I think I'm going to use this. This will be enough to do that middle rock. This one here. You guys can see everything, right? Let me move out over here. You can kind of see, I can see the powder in here and just kind of mix it in. Just good. Yeah, good. Now let me see if I can pour that. And I think I might kind of short fill it. If that makes sense. Because I don't, this diorama that we're doing, the base that we've built is a little on the small side, quite honestly. So I don't want big, huge rocks necessarily. I mean, that actually kind of probably was the perfect amount to fill the whole thing there. Okay. That's all right. That'll work. Try not to have too much overfill where we have kind of flashing on the outside. So I'm going to pull that in like so. Like that. And then how much do I have left? Do I have enough to... I mean, I don't even know if I'm going to use all 3 rocks, but I figured we'd make them just to have them, just in case we want to. I'm going to mix just a little bit more in here. Leave this dry. Yeah, we've got plenty here. I can do 3 more, and then I still have plenty left. Okay. And that's gonna be fine. Let me close this up again. Because knowing me, it will be spilt everywhere if I don't clip it closed. And then let's go one more, and a bit. That's how I measure things. I keep it very specific and technical. All right, let's stir it up. You got to kind of get to it before the previous plaster you had in here dries up on you. And we're remixing. Yeah. Guess I could use probably could have used a shallower container. Might make this a little easier, but again, you use what you have and what you're not, concerned about destroying. I do know all over the instructions with this stuff, it says do not wash, do not clean out down the sink. Kind of makes sense. You don't want this stuff going down, and down into the water system or the sewer or whatever. Okay, I think that's going to have it, and we'll pour this last one. And I think I do want to try to make this into 2 rocks instead of one big one. Makes sense to me. So let's see what I'm not very good at judging the volumes here. Let's go with that for this one, and then just try to pull it out. It'll kind of self-level itself, but I'm going to help it out a bit. I'm trying to work the bubbles out of it too. You can see there's some bubbles there. We can probably, I don't know if you can, a lot of times you can kind of, see the bubbles coming up? Get the bubbles out of it by just kind of dropping it on the table. I think that's all right. Let me see. Took all this down. I'm going to try to pour this side too. All the rocks. We need all the rocks. Now, I think this takes a couple hours to dry. That's what I've read somewhere. Okay. What we got left on this side, we can add some more to this, I think. Okay, I think that'll be good. Set that over there, and then again, I'm gonna kind of work this around. It's actually it's setting up now. Like it's getting thicker and thicker already. Okay, I think that's gonna be. I think that's gonna work well. Just have the 2 rocks instead of one big one. That'll give me a little more leeway with what I can, how I can arrange them. Okay. Clean that off. I just clean it off on the rag, just in case I need to use it again, I guess. Trying to get it nice and clean. All right, and I think I'm going to do that. It seemed to kind of work. See if that'll, see the bubbles coming up over there? So I'm going to kind of, I don't know if you guys can see it. This white kind of washes out, doesn't it? There's bubbles popping up. I can see them coming up. Okay, I think we'll go with that right there. Now, I need to set this. For now, I'm just going to set it right back here so we can try to cure, dry up. And then I was going to take a look at what we've got else to go here, which is, in fact, let me bring, I hate to bring this over, but I'm going to try to do it without making a mess of it because this brown paint's still a little wet. But I want to be able to show you what the idea is. So we have to build a structure, basically the earth. There we go. We've got to build our earth structure, which would be underneath any of our green, any of our foliage or any of that kind of stuff. Grass. See, I'm making a mess of this. I knew I would. Which is fine. It's okay if we get it dirty in here. We're going to cover that up. So basically, we got to build the earth. So we'll use essentially paper mache, and then of course the rocks we've made here to build that. And then on top of that, we'll add our textures, right? So I've got all kinds of things I've got some fine, what would be basically sand, but it'd be in a diorama, it's kind of like fine rock. And then we've got what would be heavier kind of stones. I've got some of that if we want to use it. All that can also be colored, so we can use our paints and whatnot to color it. I've also got, what is this? This is some more stone. This dark brown stone here. And then I've got a ton of different foliage. I've got just regular green, which I've got a whole bucket of our green grass here that we can flock on there. I've got a little bit of thicker if we want to do that. I don't know if I want to do anything like this. Some of the kind of heavier flocking, they're calling it medium green. These all came from different kits I've bought during the years and I hold on to. But, you know what I mean? It's just all the kind of the extra stuff I have laying around. I have a bucket I keep of all this stuff. And when I finish a project, like we just finished a flower shop project, and there was a few little extra doodads, well, I threw them in that bucket. And then down the road, maybe we use them. I've also got some fall colored kind of stuff. So some, what do they call this? Late fall foliage. So orange. And then more of a kind of like a tan or a ochre color. I think what we're going to do, though, I think I'm going to build the structure and then put the rocks in, you know, all that stuff. And I think we'll just go with green. We'll go with green and then some stone kind of around the rocks. And keep it very simple because we don't have a lot of space here, so we don't want to get super complicated. The focus needs to be the dinosaur. Right, so you start getting a bunch of. If we put a river in, now it's going to get. Actually, that would be kind of cool if there was water. Anyways, we're not doing that. You know, we're going to keep it simple, but effective. So it does the job. Basically, it's there to frame him. Right. So when you build the diorama, you have your center point, whatever that is, whether it's a building or whatever, and then all the other stuff is to kind of build a frame for that focal point. Sometimes the landscape is the focal point, and that's when it's really fun, right? When you start, like it's a waterfall or it's a waterway or it's, you know, and that it is the focal point. But in this case, we want to keep it to the dinosaur. So I'm going to keep it simple. And what we need to do to start that, let me grab my paper that's down on the floor here. Yeah. We're going to use some good old newspaper. Let's see, let me just pull a sheet of it because I think I can probably just rip this down maybe kind of into quarters because this is a smaller diorama. We're not building like a big train set or something. You know, it's a little smaller. And what you want to do is kind of, let me actually show you a little better. So you're going to crumple it up and you're kind of folding it in on itself, right? So we're making kind of little structures like this that then we can just kind of tuck in here. Like so, and then what I can do if I want, grab a little tape. Now I want to get it into this corner, is important to me, like so, and then I'll just kind of tape it down just to hold it in place. I think that'll be fine. Now I want to keep in mind while we do this, where he's going to be standing. And I want him, again, I'm thinking this is going to be, my idea is like this is something you would see at a museum, a display at a museum. So, and normally, like you could, a lot of times you want to break things into thirds. This is just a very design concept. You break things into thirds, front, back. And so maybe you would put him in the back, you know, a third over, a third back. And then it gives it, you don't want things normally dead center is what I'm trying to get at. But I don't know if that's, I think I'm going to put him just a hair off center. Because when I think of museums, they're just displaying bones. They're not, a lot of times I think he would be just dead center, but I'm going to put him just a little off center, right? So it puts his mass, it's going to put his mass a little more center and his tail, see how his tail goes outside of, if you want to say this is the frame, it breaks out of that plane. And that's always interesting to me is to have things exceed out or break out of the plane. So in other words, we could try to get him all fit in there like that and put him on this side of the halfway mark, which we could do that. But I like I want to put his mass kind of center and then have him break out. And then that gives us that interest. But always remember too, just remember thirds. Break things into thirds. when you're trying to design, a layout of something. But let's go ahead and get this done a little bit. I'm going to tape this down just a little bit better, like so, because we're going to run out of time here in just a second. Here's my other one. Again, we just take it and then just kind of roll it in on itself like so. And I'm going to go right into here. And now I'm going to flatten out back this way. Yeah, like so. Right, and then I want to build up over on this side. Where did I toss all my paper to? Here we go. Keep this up here. I'm trying to go pretty quick so we don't run out of time. Like so, kind of getting a little bit smaller because we're going to get flatter. We got to get down to this level out here. And again, it's okay for us to, to extend above those lines. I want to try to keep it down because we are going to have to, paper mache this. Where's it at? I can show you because I don't think we're going to get to it today. I have a whole package. This is, in fact, let me open it up so you can see. It's really dusty, so I'm going to leave it in the package. But it is, it's mesh cloth with plaster in it. So all we got to do is we're going to cut this into strips and we're going to run it all over this. We'll see if we can get there today, but I think we're going to run out of time. So I think what we're going to try to do today is kind of get our structure built out here using our paper. I'm going to tape that down like so. Trying to get this down just a little bit. I don't want it too tall. I'm going to try to flatten that out and hold it down like so. Same thing on the back side here. This is not the best tape for this. Should be using just regular masking tape. I'd really like that to come down. I just don't want to tape on my... Normally, a lot of times how you do this is you just use cardboard to make your framing around, and you can just tape straight to your cardboard and you work it over, and then you can frame it in with some wood or something. This is my final outside, so I'm having to be kind of careful. The odds of me not getting plaster all over it are slim, but we're going to try. Okay, I kind of like that. Now I need a little bit of something right there. And I can keep kind of pulling these a little smaller, what the paper we're working with. So now when I bring it in on itself, it's a lot flatter, like so. And I also have to keep in mind where I want to put my rock work. And I know this looks like a mess right now. That's okay. It's kind of what you want, really. Whoops, I didn't tape it all. You kind of want a little bit of a mess because you want it to. I want this to be rocky. We're doing rock, so we want it to be pretty chaotic. But see, I'll leave places in like this. Now, also keep in mind when we put our plaster strips on, we'll be able to mold this a little bit and work it around, flatten it out, that kind of stuff. I wish I could pull that down some more because what I want to do, I want that to be a little flatter there because I'm probably going to put work a rock maybe in here, kind of the face of this here. But now again, let me bring my guy over. I got to keep in mind where we're going to put that big rock. We wanted it just a little off like so. So it's going to go right in here. So I need that to be flattened out like that. And then that's what we'll kind of do the rest of the way is just flat paper. Just because we do have to build up to our structure here. Like so. A lot of times what you can do is just tape across it like that, just to hold it, and then we'll do this one out real big like so. Let me show you. Just in here. Just like that, and just kind of fill that large area. This one does not want to stay down for me, so I might actually throw some glue under that one because I want to keep that down flatter. over there. And keep in mind, there's gonna be plaster all the way. I need that down. There's gonna be plaster all the way to the edges, right? So all this will get, all the brown obviously is gonna go away. And then what I think we do, I'll do, let me see if I can get some glue on this guy here. Try to hold him down a little bit. I needed to let that sit. So let's just let that sit a second. Let me put some tape there. And I think we'll try to get one strip done. So I think I just got glue all over my shorts. I'm going to be double dead today. Yeah. Look what I just saw. You hold the newspaper I'm using. Texas Surf Museum. I'm going to have to go check that out. I just happened to see that there. Definitely a Texas surfer, so I'd like to go check that out. All right, and I'm going to set something on that. Stay right there, like that. There, okay. Now, let me put the lid back on this, set it out of the way so I don't knock it off on my shorts again. And I think this will be pretty good structure. I think that's going to be good. I think once we start getting our strips put on, it'll make sense. I think what I'm going to have to do is, this is going to be an absolute mess. So I'm probably going to have to take this elsewhere and cut it into strips, because this is going to be quite a mess. I don't want to get mess all through here. So I think what I'll do, what are we at? We're at about the 30-minute mark. Why don't we? I think I'm gonna do that because I want you guys to get to see at least one strip go on to kind of see the idea, and then because what I'll do is probably finish it out in between episodes as far as putting all that done. We'll pull our rocks tomorrow also. Start putting this all together. But why don't you hang on one second? Let me go cut this up outside so I don't make a huge mess. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back and I've got some of it cut. I cut some thin strips so we can just real quickly kind of take a look at this process. So I put the water here. Let me grab one of the strips. I got a bucket full of them so it doesn't make because this stuff is super powdery. It will make a mess. So keep that in mind. But this is one of the strips. Another thing, like you don't want to put this in water and let it sit in the water. You just want to wet it. If you let it just sit in the water, you're going to lose all the plaster will just leave the mesh and you won't have anything to work with. So the way I'm going to do it with this little bucket, which you can't even see. Let me see if I can. I'm trying not to make, where can I put it? I'm trying not to make a mess of this, which the paint is still wet on. I don't know why this paint is not drying. But basically what I'm going to do is just take it through the bucket like so, pop it out. And then what we do is just work it in like this. And then you can just use your fingers. See how I can smear the plaster? We can kind of build out the structure. I wanted to just kind of put one across here so you can see. And you just use your fingers and work this plaster. And then you can always keep your fingers wet and work that plaster. See how the plaster will kind of spread into the cloth. Hopefully you guys can see that. And you just kind of work it in. Of course, we're going to do this in layers. So we'll have a bunch of layers of this. And you want to keep it, rocky-ish. I'm going to work that down in there. Like so. Yeah, and then let me grab, I'll go ahead and grab another one. We can kind of see. I'm going to go another one here. And it's kind of fun. Working from the corner here, like so. And I think there's one more thing I'll show you before we go. One kind of technique that can really help, that I found helps at least. Everything that I do here, I've just got, when I say this is how I do it, I mean, it's literally just how I do it. So there's always tons of options. But I want to try to work these two together. And what I do is I'll lay this way and this way, but I want to show you on this edge just real quick. Whoops, I think I bumped the camera. In fact, I'm going to go down this edge here. So what you can do, let me wet this real quick, like so. Keep it over top. And what you can do is fold the edge. Just kind of fold your edge over to make something of a clean edge, I guess you would say. And then that's what you want to put against your edge here. Does that make sense? See how that'll kind of give you that clean edge against your framework? Let me clean that off before it makes a mess. I want to try to keep the frame clean. Like I said, usually what you would do is just build these walls here out of cardboard, and then you just mush to it, if that makes sense. And then you can go in and build a wooden frame or whatever, a wooden box around it to make it clean. But anyways, this is how we're going to build our structure as we just kind of work down that way. Move this out of the way now. That should be, yeah. And I'll do this in between episodes. I'll finish it out. I'll want to, build in this corner nicely. And when we come back tomorrow, what we'll have is essentially a paper mache structure here. And then our rocks up here will be dry, so we can kind of place in our rocks where we want them. I need to really start kind of thinking about that as we go. See how I can start shaping this. Welcome back to the workbench, where uncut and unedited, you get to watch me try to make things. And what we're trying to make today is what we're continuing to try to make today is a diorama for a toy dinosaur that we've repainted. So if you've missed any of the episodes, go back, check the playlist. You can see us repaint the dinosaur. And then yesterday, we started building the diorama platform or base, I guess you would say. So we started plastering in essentially a little box that we built out of MDF and plastic. So I've got the stones that we molded. I got them pulled from the mold and laid out, and then I've formed them in with just some plaster. Now, today I think we're going to try painting, and again, up in the corner, I'll place a picture kind of where we end up, so you can see what the finished product's going to look like, and then how we get there. Or stick around and you can see how we get there, I should say. So today we're going to try to, fix a little bit of the plaster and then start painting the base itself, laying in some washes in here. And then we'll just see how far we can get along. But when I say fixing, so this is, we've got to fix some of the cracks back here. So when this happens, your plaster will contract and you'll end up with some cracks when it dries. And that's fine. We can just go back in. Hopefully you guys can see that. There we go, right there. How it pulled away from the stone. Now these stones are nicely in place. Just a little bit of glue, and then of course the plaster itself will hold them in place. But let's fix that up real quick. And pretty simple. I still have some of our just bare plaster in here. I'm going to add a little water to it, see if I can get it rejuvenated. Let's do that. I can stir it up, and hopefully this will kind of bring some of it back to life, just enough so we can fill those cracks. We do have, I can show you, we have some little cracks along here. These, no big deal. Not worried about these. Those aren't going to cause any problems. Just the bigger ones might cause an issue. So I think I'm going to try to get those filled in. It shouldn't be too hard. Basically, and this, you can see how I molded these in. So basically you just get a little bit, I'm using a popsicle stick, and just pull it up into your rock structure here. Same with right here where these cracks are. I kind of pull it up into it like this. And then there, that's pretty well got it filled now. But what we want to do, obviously, that actually doesn't look too bad. It really washes out. Let me turn this light down, see if I can get it to not wash out so much. I don't know if that helps, but basically you can use your finger, just wet your finger. I've got water right back here. Wet your finger, and you can somewhat pull some of those sharp edges away, and it'll really start to just look like part of the rock. Again, when your finger dries, just re-wet it. Just like that. And now you got to be a little bit careful, because you can pretty easily get fingerprints in this too. A lot of times you can just wear a glove, and of course that takes away that issue of possibly getting fingerprints in it. But I think that looks pretty good, and it got rid of those cracks. So now our cracks are gone. Now we'll let that dry over on that side. Let me move. I'm going to move our plaster container, put the lid on, move it out of the way, just in case we need it for later. And now what we want to do is I've got some washes here. So I've got a brown, I've got a tan, I guess you would call that, and then I've got some black wash put together here. Yeah, just in baby food jars, very simply done. So the idea is these are the rocks kind of protruding up, out of the earth. And then most of all, this you see here is going to be ground cover, so grass, whatever. And then, of course, I guess I could show our dinosaur is going to be standing here, kind of 1 foot on the grass, 1 foot on the stone. I had him balanced a second ago. We'll glue him in place so he doesn't fall down, but he's going to be standing right there. But what we need to do now is get these kind of painted in. And the way that I think I'm going to do this, I had a cheap brush. What did I do with it? Here it is. Oh, just use an old cheap brush here. They also have that I could use. I might even do it this way. I have a foam brush. Let's do it that way. Because then what we can do, I'm going to take the dark brown. And what I want to use is the dark brown and the tan. So these two. And I want to kind of put splotches of color around. I think what I'll do is the dark brown probably will be more around the base. Let me come in here. And again, and the reason why I'm using decided to use a sponge brush is you can see how it'll kind of cause pooling to happen because you can just push and squeeze it out. I might bring some of the dark brown right up in there, just like so. And we're going to do this for all our rocks. You want to kind of I want to bring some of the darker brown up into the rock like so. And this will slowly come together. You kind of see what I'm trying to do here. Hopefully it works out. We'll see. But I want to keep the darker color kind of around, I think, the edges. And we'll come back and do multiple layers. You can see how thin this wash is. And that's because I wanted it to be able to run and pool basically just like it is. I'm going to keep it real thin like that. And so with it thin this way, what we'll do is we'll come back and do multiple. I just used my clean water to clean my brush, but that's okay. I can always get more. We'll do multiple layers to get the color, the opacity of color that we want. In other words, you don't want to come in too dark right off the bat and then you're stuck with what you got. Now we're going to go with the tan color and kind of hit the spots that we didn't get. If that makes sense. So kind of work that into the whiter areas and see how it'll run over top of the brown. It'll kind of mix a little bit, and that's fine. That's really what we want, is all this color to just kind of flow around, mix, and pool. One of the most important things is we want it to start to pool. So in the recesses, it'll just kind of make little puddles in there, and then that'll end up drying, a little darker, just like that. So we're starting to get there. So we're starting to have. I want my browns. So I think I'm going to go back to that. But we're starting to kind of get the look that I think I think that's going to work. We're going to find out. Let me move that back over there. I'm just going to go back to the brown. This stuff does not take long to dry. So we should be able to go right back and kind of hit those spots with this brown again, just like so. And again, this is just layer building. We want to build layers. You don't want to, it's a process, I guess you would say. And I want to make sure and also get all the way around the stones, because that's like right over here. I need to hit this spot right here, because that's where we're going to pull the foliage and the ground cover into those rocks. So we don't want any bare spots. We don't want any white plaster showing through there. And let's just keep layering this. And again, I'm coming back basically in the same spots I already hit with the brown prior. Like so. And then, of course, make sure. And I might just, because what I'll end up doing is just basically covering all of the white area, just so that there's a base below the foliage when we do it. But I can go back and do that on my own time. I need a little bit more color here if I could. It's all running off is the problem. Just like so, get up top there. But again, trying to keep it just splotchy and random. that's kind of the thing with nature, and why nature can be so hard is nature is random, but it's also organized random, if that makes sense. So things grow, colors happen for reasons, but for random reasons. So I don't know if that's the best way to explain it. So you got to kind of keep that in mind a little bit. I'm just going to wash all this. You got to keep all that in mind a little bit. There are, geometry exists, and it's a natural thing. So I think yesterday we were talking about kind of that laws of threes, where we just break everything into thirds, right? And it makes it look random because you're not putting something, say, dead in the center, but you're still using math and geometry, which is not random, to make it look random. Does that make any sense? I hope that makes just the slightest of sense. So the point being is, we want, in other words, my rocks are all basically running this way, except for one that's crooked, that's on a third. So, you know what I mean? On a third. These are on the edges. So here's our middle, here's our thirds, right? So you're trying, so it's organized chaos, I think is what they say sometimes about nature. I'm not the best at it. I'm not going to lie. I'm not trying to claim to be, the source to go to. There's people that actually are very good at this stuff. Let me let that dry, and I'm going to go back to the yellow now. But always just trying to keep that kind of thing in mind, that, yeah, you want it to be random, but then a lot of times, especially when I was younger, I'd do things, might try to make it look random, and it looked random. If that makes sense. It looked like I was trying to make it look random. And that's the hard thing to do, is to make something appear random, but not make it appear random. I don't know how to even say that. Hopefully this makes sense. I'm going to go right back over top of where that yellow I had, like so, just to give that splotchiness again. And then I'll end up adding the yellow again back into back across all this too, but I just don't want to add it right now because the brown's still very wet. If that makes sense to you. Let me clean that up again. And I think we're starting to get somewhere. Let me see if I can pick this up and show you. Kind of getting to what we want, I think. I know it looks a little too tan, and I agree, but that's what the black is going to be for, by the way. So we need to actually kind of let this dry for a bit. I need this to get dry. I think what I'm going to do is, because this is going to take a while, again, it's layering, just doing exactly what I was doing, layering the color on top of color on top of color until we're going to get a solid color. I'm going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut for right now. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to make you sit here and again, just watch paint dry. So I'll be back. When I come back, I'll have all those layers, just exactly what I'm doing, but just over and over and over again. And then we'll start applying the black to bring it all together. And I'll show you how that works. It's now got a few coats of both the tan and the brown. So I just kind of layered them on top of each other. Oh, my brown is making a mess over here. So I just kind of layered the colors on top of each other to just kind of build up to what you see now. And I don't mind, you want to keep some of the white, the lighter colors kind of showing through also to give those highlights. But now what I want to do is come in with the black, and this is what kind of will really give it some definition. Let me kind of shake this up just a little bit, make sure we're still mixed together. And what I want to do, or what I think I'm going to try to do, is use the black and kind of separate out or go in between. I mean, obviously it's going to run everywhere, but we want to try to apply it in between where the colors are, if that makes sense. So at the border of the colors, we'll come in and just kind of put in the black like so, right through here. And it'll kind of just give you almost like a blending of the colors, the colors being the brown and the tan, or it's kind of yellowish. And of course, it's going to run everywhere, which gives you a little bit of that, again, keeping that randomness going. But let's see if we can just kind of try to separate those different color patches, or not separate them, but actually blend them, bring them together with what is going to end up basically being like a gray color. we're using black, but it'll end up being gray once it dries out, more of a rocky tone. In fact, most things, I'm going to kind of just apply some around to out here just to give some darker undertones. But most things in nature aren't, we think of rocks or maybe tree trunks even more so. We think of tree trunks as being brown, and they are. They on the whole, at the end of the day, they are brown. But if you look real close, if you go outside right now, you don't have to even look real close. Just look at tree trunks. A lot of gray. Some trees, their trunks literally are gray, but even the darker tree trunks that we think of as brown, they have a lot of gray in them. Most of things in nature, natural things like that, rocks, trees, the things that we think of as brown, really do have a lot of gray in them. So anyways, take a look at that. And so when you start trying to build out the colors of things, especially rocks. I mean, I think a lot of times we think of rocks as gray too. And in all actuality, I think we'll find that there's more browns and reds and those kind of colors in rocks than we expect them to be than just gray. So it's I think it's a good practice. Go ahead and look at the color of things in nature. Especially if you're doing some kind of nature type thing like this, like a diorama or a landscape of some sort, and you'll see what undertones there are. It's just like when you paint a human, like a face or skin tone, there's green in it, which is weird. You don't think about that, but you got to think about all those undertones that are in things of this sort. And I think that's already. Now we're gonna layer this on just like we did with the other colors, but I think that's already, you're starting to get the idea. It's starting to look a lot more like stone and like rock, I think. I hope. I hope it's looking like that. And again, but I want to let this actually dry before I even layer it more, because basically if I just keep doing it now, it's going to just it's just wet on wet. So it's not gonna actually create those layers on top of each other. It's just all gonna melt in the one layer. So you let this dry, and it doesn't take long for these washes to dry. And then you build another layer on top of that. Sometimes what you can do too when you're doing weathering effects, or what I like to do, not necessarily with this type of thing, but you can put in a color tone, and then let that dry, come over top of it with a flat clear, a matte clear, where it kind of seals it, and then build on top of that, and then matte clear it and build on top of that. And that's when you can really start building layers, because you're getting no intermingling. With this, these first layers, we're actually going into the plaster. It's we're almost like doing a fresco, if you're familiar, where you paint, where the paint is in the plaster, like the old masters used to do, the Sistine Chapel and all that, where they were the paint, they're called frescoes, the paint's in the plaster. And that's kind of what we're doing here, where it's going into the plaster in the beginning, and then as we build layers and let them dry, then we're starting to build on top of each other. And I like to do that with that kind of technique with this, because it makes it a little softer, a little less harsh edged. It makes it look just a little bit more natural. But if you wanted, which you could do, and I don't think we're going to do it, but once I've got to where I'm happy, you can matte clear this and then put in, like, sometimes you have veins, or you have, especially if you're doing like marble or something, you'll have veining and whatnot through the rocks, which then you could come in and paint in, where it's more a harsher edge type thing. I don't want to do that here. I want to keep it very simple. The whole idea, again, was this to be just a display. In fact, let me bring the guy over. This is supposed to be just like a display in a museum. So this isn't actually supposed to be like obviously dinosaurs had muscle and skin and organs and eyeballs and all that. So there wouldn't be a skeletal dinosaur walking around in the day. At least I don't think so. So I wanted to make this look more like a museum display, and a lot of times they're a little more simple. I don't want to say simple, but less detail, because again, it's about the dinosaur itself, not about the thing it's standing on. So I want to keep the focus on the dinosaur, not on this down here. Keep it nice and simple, not get too detailed. It's a little bit like washed out. It's almost like if you were taking a photo of something and you want the background, but you want the background out of focus and what you're focusing on, or the subject matter to be in focus. Kind of the same thing. We want this, which you can see the dinosaur. Let me hold it up closer. Has a lot more detail to it. In the paint and in the sculpture, of course. Now, we didn't do the sculpture, we just did the paint, but then the background is going to be more washed out, a little, you could say, kind of out of focus. So not huge amounts of detail. Let me set him aside. And I wish we could get this to dry up a little bit. In fact, I'm going to pat out some of this thicker stuff here, like so. Because if we can get past, we still have, we have a little bit of time together here. Because I'd like to even start maybe putting in some of the grass. Because what we're going to do, I need a lot more grays in this, so I don't want to do it just yet. I still need this to get grayed out a little bit. But I need it to dry up before we can do that. But what we're going to use is I just have powdered, this is an evergreen accent. I have a whole bucket of this stuff, which is a little greener. And to be honest with you, I do want to go pretty green. The reason being is as we place our dinosaur on here now, you can see we're kind of in the same color family. We have a lot of the same colors. This is going to gray up a lot more than the dinosaur once I layer in the black like we did with the other colors. But I do want to get green in here. So to separate the color, so to make him stand out even more. Does that make sense? And then we're also going to work in some rocks. Some stones and rocks. And I think I'm going to use these because I think their color is pretty good. Or I also have white ones we can use because you can take these and just mix up a color and then drop your rocks in that color, let them stain. But I think we'll keep it simple. I'll go with more of just these rocks around the edge after the grass. Let me go ahead and try to add a little bit more black and see if before we finish up here, see if we can get a little bit better coloration on this. Again, I'm trying to just drop this right in betweens of the colors. Right here's where we need to separate it. Right here. Right, like so. And again, we just need to kind of layer this on top of each other. I'm going to give just a little bit. This is I don't like how yellow that is. So I'm just going to give it a touch of this just to kind of gray it out a little bit. That makes sense. I don't know if that's a real terminology or not, but we're going to gray it out just like that. Kind of like how that's looking. You can see how it's starting to look a lot more like stone now. At least I hope it does. And then as we continue to do this, again, I want to this tan is just a little too yellow for me. So I'm going to add some black on it like so. And this will start to look like rocks. Let me go right around. Let's just spread out some of this thick stuff we got going here. Yeah, just like that. Let me clean my brush. I think that's going to look pretty good. And I think what I'll do, I think I'm going to cut again and I'll let this dry up, put in a bunch of layers. We'll come back together. And I really do want to try to just start adding in the grass so you can kind of see that process. So let me cut here again because this is going to take some time. Obviously, I got to let this completely dry, another layer until I get it to that gray point that I want. So I'll be right back. Now we're at a level of gray that I think I'm happy with. I think I'm okay. I'm not crazy about this kind of stripe that ended up just right here. I can't not see it. But I think I think it'll be okay. I think we'll just let it, that's kind of how it naturally occurred. Plus, let me grab our dinosaur here. He's going to be kind of standing here, which I think I'll distract from that a little bit. But what I wanted to do before we go is I wanted to go ahead and start putting in some of the grass because that's going to completely change what we see here. And the way we're going to do this is I've actually got, this is actually, what does they call this? With the Woodland Scenics, it's their spray tack. So it's glued made for putting down foliage and whatnot. It's just white glue. I think it's a little different, but it's basically watered down Elmer's glue, which I've actually got some here. This is from a kit I had at some point. Literally just Elmer's glue. You can water this down to make it happen. This actually came in a spray bottle that has broken. I don't want to use this. I don't want to spray anyways because I don't want to spray the rocks. So we're going to brush the paint on. But this is what I'm actually going to go ahead and use. And I think I'm just going to kind of pour it in a little container I have here. And then I'll just use a cheap brush and we'll brush it on. Let me give this a shake up. It's been sitting around quite a while. So let me just do it this way. I'm going to bring a paper towel out because this might make a mess. Again, this is meant to be sprayed. But I am going to just pour some right here in this container, which that's plenty. My spray bottle broke. I'm a little disappointed in that from this product. It didn't last long. But that's all right. It can still be used. The glue itself can still be used. And I'm just going to use that cheap brush I was going to use before. And what I want to do is start just applying the glue, and I just dab it like so in these areas that I want the grass to be. And I want the grass to creep up a little bit onto the rocks, like it's, growing up the rock just a little bit, but not much. I want mostly just to be, the surface of the rock to be rock. And we'll just kind of pat it in like so. I'm just going to do this area over here, I think, and I want to make sure and get all the way to the edge there. Just like so. And I think I'll just do this area. I don't know. I can probably, let's just do the whole thing. While we're here, let's just do it. Because I don't like to, if you work in pieces, a lot of times it'll end up looking like you worked in pieces. And this glue should last long enough for me to get this all applied here, I think. And I'm being relatively liberal with it. I'm not being too picky. I just don't want to get it, like I said, I don't want to get it up on the faces of the rocks, because I want to keep those rocks. I want them to make sure they look like rocks, if that makes sense. But I do want to just kind of creep up with it. So wherever I put glue basically is where we're going to get grass or foliage or green, I guess is how we should really think about it. So we want to think about where we're putting our glue here. And we can always come back and fill in spots and give it a little extra here and there. We can go back on top of the grass too if there's something we want to add. Like bushes, or I've even got trees we could put in, but I don't think we are. I don't want to do that much detail. I think that's going to be, I just want to kind of pull towards the rock just a little bit. I think that's going to work though. Let me clean this brush real quick. And then I've got this green here, which I think we're going to use. I've got a mini flocker that we could use. It makes a huge mess. And it's full of black flocking where I was flocking interiors of cars. But what I'm basically going to do, I think, is just treat this like it's like I'm salting something. And you don't have to worry much about going too heavy, too light. What's going to happen is we're going to flock this like so. Hopefully I've got enough to go around. That would be bad if I run out. Because then what we'll do is we'll let this dry. So it's almost better to overcover than to undercover. I just don't want to run out of my flocking. Because once it dries, and we'll let this fully dry, I'm going to let this fully dry. We'll basically just turn it upside down and remove, or not remove, but you just let what doesn't glue up fall off, right? And what you want to do is let it fall off onto some paper, some cardboard, some whatever, where you can reclaim the extra flocking. So we can, because what we'll probably end up doing is doing this more than once to get the coverage that we want. Here we go. We had enough to actually cover the whole thing. So now I'm going to let that be, just like that. I'm not going to touch anything. I'm just going to let that wet glue and everything dry right now. And you can almost kind of see what it's going to look like already, which is kind of cool. You can see, how the rocks are going to be kind of breaking through. Now, what's going to happen, though, is we're going to lose a lot of this green, and that undercolor is going to show through a little bit and give us a little, it's right now the green is very flat looking, obviously. So once this dries, we turn it over, we kind of reclaim our our, in fact, I'm going to reclaim this stuff right here, right now. Once we, we can reclaim it, and then, but we're going to get some of that undercolor to show through. It's going to give us a little bit deeper, what's the right word? A little more variety in color here. And it'll look much better. But I'm going to have to let this dry, and it's going to have to dry for a while. So I think we'll let that happen in between episodes. What I'll probably do in between episodes, we'll let this dry. I'll dump it, see what we've got. If I need to put another layer on, I might even come through and sprinkle a little bit of a darker green. I have a little bit of darker, so I might patch that in here and there just to give us some texture. And when we come back tomorrow, we're going to do the final assembly. And what that's going to include is any other final details we want to do as far as with coverage. Maybe if we want to go in and paint a little bit here and there on the rocks, whatever that is we want to do. And then we're going to add in some more rocks here just to give, the idea of smaller rocks and pebbles around the edges. And then we'll go ahead and attach our dinosaur. We'll be finished with this, I think, tomorrow. So welcome back to the workbench, where uncut and unedited, you can watch a guy, me, try to make things. And what we're making right now is a dinosaur diorama for my daughter's playroom. And what we've got is a dinosaur model. It was from one of those dig kits you do that we have repainted. By the way, if you want to see the repaint on this, just check the playlist below. It was actually episode 1. You can get completely caught up via the playlist down below. But we did that. And then yesterday we were working on kind of finishing up, or at least doing the stone and grass work for the base here, which we've about got finished. And today I think we're going to be able to finish this up. We'll be able to finish the entire diorama. In fact, I'll put a picture up showing kind of where we end up. And then if you hang around, you can see how we get there. But what we need to do now, I think, I guess to get you caught up, I did dump the rest of the green flocking off. So everything on here pretty much should be glued in place. But now what we want to do is just add, I think, some stones. So I've got a few different stones. We've got some white stones, some more tan ones. We got some small kind of sand looking stuff we could use if we want. I also have some darker brown, what do they call it? Yeah, dark brown stone. But I think what we're going to go with is these kind of larger. I don't even know where these came from. I get kits and different things, and I just keep what's left over. As you can see, it's just in a Ziploc bag. But I think we'll use these. I think they're going to look pretty good. Just kind of scattered just a little bit around the big rocks, just to kind of blend them into the surrounding area, if that makes sense. And to do this, all we need to do, I've still got some glue going here. This is it's actually the spray tack. The only thing is I want to brush it on. So I've put some of it into this little container I have. And then all we need to do, I think I'm going to put, and you got to kind of be a little bit careful because now we have our grass on here. So we don't want to pull up all our grass with the glue. But we're just going to glue, just slightly touching like so. I'm going to start just right around here. I've got a bug on here. You are not supposed to be there. Get out of here. Okay. Let me just slightly put some glue around like so, and we'll do this first. And I think I'm going to work in pieces. With the grass, we did it all at once. With this, we're going to work a little bit in pieces. Basically, okay, it's all just sliding right down. So we got to try to get it. I might have to actually push it in place here. There we go. And we want it to kind of scatter anyways. We kind of want clumps and scatter. We want it to look a little bit natural. And usually the glue will do that for us because these are a little heavier. So once this glue sets and then I kind of flip this over to dump it, a lot of these rocks are going to fall right back off. Of course, we'll reclaim them. I'll put them back in the bag there. But I'm going to keep going, I think, all the way around, just like so. And you are going to pick up some of the grass flocking that we already put down. You can see it's starting to get kind of in my glue. That's okay, especially working right around the edges here, because I want a little bit thinner grass around here anyways. And then we can also go back and just drop glue on top of these rocks a little bit, very carefully, trying to glue them like so. I'm going to pick up too many of them. The easiest way is if I could spray them with my spray bottle. I I do have this spray bottle. I think at the end we'll fill this guy up, and I will actually spray him a little bit. I don't want these down here to glue up, though, is the main concern. You go ahead and just keep kind of putting some glue right in there. And then let's drop some rocks in, just like so. And because these have a little weight to them, I am going to give them a little push, just to make sure they kind of sit into that glue we were laying down, which I don't even know if I got glue on that side, but that's okay. Let's just work from here. Well, picking some up. I'm trying to let it just kind of come off the brush and run. The glue, that is. And then I think I'm going to kind of work some out this way, like this, over to this guy, kind of making a little bit of a connection between those two rocks. I think that would. Oh, I got to keep in mind though. Actually, I might not be able to do that. We got to always keep in mind where his feet are going to sit. Actually, his feet sit right down there, so that'll work fine, I think. So let's go ahead and lay these rocks in here. Just like so, kind of pushing them in just a little bit, just to kind of get them into the glue. Like so. I think these are going to look pretty good. Now, obviously, this is, it's just looking up at the monitor up here. By the way, whenever I look up this way, I'm looking at the monitor of this camera. I'm just looking at it. It looks very heavy with these little stones. Now, all of this is going to fall right back off. We're not going to get all this to stick like that. But let's go ahead and work around the other rocks just real quick so we can get this kind of done. I'm going to go over this side like this. I'm kind of placing the glue on the rock and then letting it run down into the grassy areas. Okay. And again, working in sections with this now because I want to make sure and definitely hit this glue while it's wet. With the flocking, we glued the whole area and then flocked the whole area, but it's a lot lighter, a lot easier to stick. These stones are a little bit more difficult to get to stick in the glue. I think we'll go just like that. So that's why I'm giving it a little push, trying to hit it while the glue is wet. Let's go. I think I'm going to go definitely in here. In between these two here. So let me hit this side of this top rock. Yeah. Get the top rock good there. I don't know if anybody watch the breakdancing in the Olympics this year? It just reminded me of it when I said top rock, because when they're standing up doing their dancing, that's what it's called. It's called top rock. And I don't know why I remember the weirdest things, why stuff like that sticks in my brain. But it just reminded me when I said that, we're working on the top rock here. Anyways, just to get a little insight on how my brain works. All right, I think I'm going to just kind of splotchy back on this back side here, I think. It's going to be the idea, like so. And then just kind of dump them in there, like so, and then kind of give it the push on. Hopefully something will stick, is the plan. And then I think we'll do this last bottom rock, which, by the way, when they're on the ground, it's not called bottom rock. It's I think it's called groundwork. I think that's what they called it, was groundwork. I don't remember. That one I don't remember. I just remember top rock because it was funny. All right, I think we're just going to do those little areas. I'm going to leave it green over there. I think we're just going to try to kind of get some rock in here, like so. Now, what we have to do, unfortunately, is wait for this to dry. What we'll do, or what I'll do, is we'll wait for it to dry. We need it to dry very well. Let me clean my brush while I do this. We need it to dry very well. I'll take it, and what I do is I just flip it over onto a piece of paper, and then I can take that paper and just pour it back into the bag, so we can reuse our rocks, and we'll see what we have. Sometimes if it's not where we want it to be, in other words, if all of the rocks fall off but 3, well, then we want to reapply, right? We want to keep going. Just like we layer the paint, we're going to layer these rocks. I think we're only going to go with the one color. I'm keeping it very simple. I really want the focus to be on the dinosaur itself, not on the base or on the diorama. Really, the diorama is just there to kind of frame the dinosaur. But anyways, let me let this dry up. This is going to take some time. So what I'll do is I'll just cut here. I know they'll call this cut and unedited, but we're not going to sit here and watch glue dry. So we are going to cut here, and then I'll be back. Once this is dry, I'll go ahead and dump it out. When we come back, we'll see what we have, and we'll go from there. So everything's pretty well dried. I've dumped the extra rock. So you can see there's a lot less rock now. I made sure I had a space for this back foot to kind of sit in here because we're going to make the attachment here on this foot, but I want this foot to kind of sit a little bit naturally in the rocks, which I think that's going to be okay. But here you can see a lot less rock clutter. Still kind of a lot. I think it looks okay. I'm not crazy about it, but I think it looks okay. I think one thing I might do is I just might add just a little bit more of the darker color here. Now that everything's very, very dry, and I'm going to let this kind of also run down into those rocks, which I think could help things a little bit. Let me just kind of run it down. I want it to be real runny. Let it kind of run down into the grass and a lot of times the black like this will give us a little bit of, what's the right way? Like a blending of the colors. And I just want to darken it up just a little bit. These rocks to me are still too much the same color as the dinosaur itself. So I'm going to try to go ahead and just let this, I'm just doing a full wash basically over the whole rocks and letting it run down into the grass and into the rocks that are here just naturally, where it wants to run naturally, if that makes sense. Just like so. And I think I'm already kind of liking this a little better. Just adding a little bit of variation in the color of the grass around now. The black will kind of darken that out some. And along with the rocks here, I'm going to let some just kind of fall into these rocks. I might touch them a little bit. Maybe some of these down here. I did clear out some of the grass too. I don't know if you noticed. I just used my finger and kind of knocked some of that grass off and kind of blew it a little bit to give just a little bit more rock texture, I guess. Not as much grass. I think this already looks better. Okay, I'm going to go with that. I don't want to go too much. And I'll let that sit just a second. I think that's going to, again, I was thinking about putting in some of this kind of fall looking foliage just I thought about maybe trying to build it in as maybe a path that has been worn in across here. We could do that. But I don't think I am. Again, I don't want to get too complicated. With this because, maybe we could, yeah. I think I could have probably worn a path in via the grass. But I don't want too much complication here. Again, I want more of the focus to be on the dinosaur, or on the bones, I should say, what used to be a dinosaur. That's why I have it kind of breaking out and whatnot. And I don't know, I think it's looking pretty okay. I think we're going to go with it. But what I think I will do before we move on with putting him on, which would be the very last step, I'm going to dry that out just a little bit. Any of those, yeah, right there. I think what I've done is I put a little bit of our glue. This is our, again, it's our spray tack, I don't know what you call this, foliage glue. I don't know what you call this stuff. Basically, it's watered down white glue or watered down Elmer's. I kind of want to give it a mist to kind of set this, give the whole thing a bit of a mist of a spray. Just trying to set everything. You can kind of just give everything a good spray on top. Probably should have taped off the surrounding stuff. I'll wipe that down. So I want to give it a nice spray, like so, and then try to basically give that a good setting. Let me grab this towel, and I'm going to wipe the edges of the framework here of that glue before it dries, before we glue that to it. Just give it a good clean up like so. There we go. And I'm going to let that sit just a second, because the next and last thing we really need to do is put our dinosaur on. And again, I've tried to give a nice little clearing spot right here for this foot, right like so. And then this foot's going to sit on that rock. And you can tell he sits there, he stands there naturally. So I know that's going to look natural. In other words, I'm not having to glue him in place and hold him from falling over. He stands naturally there. So all I really need to do is I think I'm just going to make the connection on this foot. And I think that's all we need to do. So I want to see where that spot is, because what I'm going to use is some of the thick Starbond glue, this thick CA glue. Put a nice ball or a nice mound of it right there that I can sit his foot into to make this attachment. And so I want to see where that's at, which I can. It's right there where I need to put this. Let me set him aside again. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. And again, I'm just gonna put a nice little ball of the thick stuff. See how it holds its shape? And then now I can quickly I just got him all wound up and stuff. There we go. Bring him back over. And I had him sitting. I hope I didn't just move his legs when I made all that. I'm trying to make sure I've got glue on his feet there. And then I wanted him to sit naturally again like he was. Just like that. That seems a little further forward than I had him, though. I think I had him like that. Now that's still forward, too. I hope I didn't move these legs. Will he turn? Yeah, I think that's going to be good like that. He's kind of standing forward, but I kind of like that. He's coming at us. He's going back away from us. I'm looking at the screen up here to see how he looks. I think that's pretty good, but I need to let him just sit there and let that glue dry up and glue him in place. Also let all the glue that we sprayed all over this dry up in place. But really, I think that's pretty well got him done. Let me move some stuff around, and I should be able to bring this camera down. Let me see how I'm going to do this. Let me bring this overhead camera down, and I can show you kind of from a front view. Whoops, this might be a little jarring. Let's see how this view looks here. Back it up some. Yeah, you get a little better look at it. I don't want to. I was going to turn him towards you, but I don't want to while he's gluing up. I think that gives a pretty good idea of how this is going to look, or how it does look. Let me see if I can just very carefully. I don't think I can. I'm not going to touch it. I'm scared to turn him because I'm afraid he's going to come falling down, and then that's going to be a real problem. But I think he looks. I like how it looks. I don't know. You let me know down in the description. I think it looks okay. I was thinking we could add some foliage around. We kind of back here, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that. Once this is dried up, I'm gonna take pictures of it. I might add some foliage in the back here. I don't know, just to kind of finish it off, some of this kind of thick foliage. I'm gonna throw pictures at the end of the video so you can see the final product once everything's dried, so you'll know whether I did that or not. But that's pretty much the gist of just doing a quick kind of diorama. I think a simple one, a very simple one. Anyways, let me know what you think down in the description. Did you enjoy this build? Do you enjoy these kind of things, watching these kind of things be done? Let me know how I did. Let me know how bad I did. I think it looks okay. I don't think it's too bad. I don't think it's too bad. Let me know what you think down below. Thanks for joining me. Hey, hit that like button, subscribe button, bell, all those things you do on YouTube, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.